I want to tell you about a 15-year-old African-American boy that left a very long and lasting impression on me. And for our purposes today, we'll just call him Matthew, okay? Now, Matthew lives in Los Angeles, and his father's in prison, and his mother has a substance abuse problem. Matthew was in foster care at the time that I spoke with him. And one day we were just on the beach, just, talking away, and I asked Matthew, I said, what would you like to do in life? What are some of your goals and aspirations? And he said, well, I basically have three choices. And I said, okay. I said, well, what are they? He said, well, I can either work at McDonald's, or I can work at a liquor store, or I can beat up people. And I said, well, Matthew, why would you think that? Why would you think those are your only three choices? And he said, because I'm black. And I said, well, what difference does that make? So you're black, so what? I'm white. What's the big deal? Why would you think that being black would be a determining factor? And he said, because all my friends are black, and that's what they do. Well, at that moment, I looked at Matthew's eyes, and all I could see was hopelessness. Hopelessness in a 15-year-old boy's eyes. No future, no ambition, nothing. And the reason he felt that way was because of his race. I couldn't believe it. Well, around that time, I was watching C-SPAN, and there was a roundtable discussion with prominent African-American leaders, and they were all talking about what they could do to help kids just like Matthew. They talked about how they could increase literacy, how they could reduce the dropout rate, and so forth. And so I thought I would contact some of those organizations just to see how sincere they were in helping kids just like Matthew. Because the project that I had in mind was a book project, actually a multimedia project that could have raised millions of dollars for any number of organizations that would profile some positive examples in the African American community, that would encourage kids to study, that would encourage them to read and not to drop out of school. Well, the first organization that I contacted was the NAACP. And I emailed the chairman of the NAACP, who was a very nice guy, who was very polite and got right back to me. He said, sure, send him the information, and I did so. And then he forwarded it to then the acting president of the NAACP. This is before Ben Jealous got there. The acting president, the proposal sat on his desk for 2 weeks, and so I decided to give him a call just to see what was up. And I did so. We talked about the proposal, and he said he was going to forward the information, or at least I should call the person who heads up the Image Awards in Los Angeles for the NAACP. Well, I did. I called him twice. I left 2 messages. He never called me back. And the acting president of the NAACP said he'd probably get back to me like in 2 weeks. I never heard from him. Nor did I hear from the chairman of the NAACP after I sent both the acting president and the chairman a letter describing exactly what happened. Didn't hear from anybody. Well, I wasn't going to be deterred because of that, so I called up the 100 Black Men. The chairman of the 100 Black Men was on the show, and he said something very, very insightful. He said, they will see what they will be. And that is very, very true. And that was really the heart of my proposal. So I called up the head of the 100 Black Men, and I left a couple of messages for him. I sent him an email as well. Never responded. Didn't hear from him. Next on the list was the National Urban League, and I contacted the head of the National Urban League. Sent him an email, called him on the phone, described the project to him, never heard from him. Never got the courtesy of a reply. Well, I'm striking out here. So I decided to call up Tom Joyner, the Tom Joyner Show. Now, Tom Joyner talks about education all the time. He talks about the importance of education and why there are more black men in jail than there are in college today. We'd like to see those numbers reversed. Well, I sent an email to his son describing the project, introducing myself, etc. I never heard from him. Didn't get a reply there either. What about Magic Johnson? That's the only person I could think of. So I sent a letter to Magic Johnson in Los Angeles describing the proposal. I mean, Magic Johnson employs a lot of African-American kids in his Burger King restaurants as well as elsewhere. I thought, here's a man that would certainly understand the importance of education, would certainly understand the values of positive role models, etc. Didn't hear from him. Well, I was very discouraged about the whole thing. And I learned a very, very important lesson, that there is a great deal of difference between talking about something and actually doing it. And all of these organizations, especially the nonprofit organizations, would have made a lot of money with corporate sponsorships because of my proposal. Kids would have been helped. And when I think about Matthew and the millions of kids just like Matthew, I have to wonder who helps them, who really cares about them, Who's going to help them not to drop out of school? Because the African American dropout rate in the U.S. is 50%, if not more. What kind of future are they going to have? Are they just going to be thinking throughout their entire lives all they can do is just work at McDonald's, work at a liquor store, or beat up people? Is that what's going to happen? I will never understand why these organizations never contacted me. Was it because I was white? As you can plainly see, I am white. And they were black? I would hate to think that. It's not about white and black. It's not about that. What it's about kids. It's about their future. It's about the difference between someone going to prison versus someone going to college. That's what this is about. It's about people's lives. And that was a project that I wanted to tell them about. Never got a reply. I never got an answer. I wish I had. I wanted you to know about it. So the next time that you give money to these organizations, you will know exactly who you're giving money to. And the next time you hear Tom Joyner on the radio or see Magic Johnson on television, well, you might be reminded of the time that I contacted them and I asked them for their help, and they didn't give it to me. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to email me directly. My email address is markd@112@yahoo.com. That's markd112@yahoo.com. I'm Mark Dempsey, and thanks so much for listening.